Yeah, well, silver's got many, many uses. It's not just industrial. I mean, you've got technological, you have medicinal. Uh, I mean, go back hundreds of years. You remember the term, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Well, only the wealthy people could afford silverware. And the reason they used silverware was because the antibacterial
properties.
The antibacterial that properties of silver, right? Exactly. Gold is basically strictly money, and silver for several thousand years was also money, but it has other uses. It has more uses than any other element on the planet. Gold was overbought. Silver was more overbought than it was in 1980, back at the peak. And what you've seen with both of them are high-level consolidations. The paper trade is waning and the physical market is growing. The physical markets are growing. Just look at what the BRICS are doing. I mean, they're opening storage facilities, refineries. They're very serious about accumulating both gold and silver. And it makes sense because, for years and years, they had, I guess the metaphor is tons. They had tons of dollars on their books, and now they're adding tons of real money on their balance sheet. Obviously, price tells you that they're losing control, but let's not even talk about price. We did mention that we're in a structural deficit. We've had a supply and demand deficit for 5 years, and that's what happens when you get a small market size-wise as far as dollar amounts. I mean, the total production globally is only like $30 billion a year. But when you get a small market that's easy to manipulate, and if you're constantly manipulating to the downside and suppressing the price, what that does is it makes it much more difficult for producers to earn a profit, so they mine less silver. So, a direct consequence is the fact that we're in a structural supply deficit. Other things to look at, you can look at the lease rate on silver. You can look at the lease rate and the amount of shorts available on SLV, which is strictly paper. That's not actual physical silver. But the rates to borrow, it's blowing the shorts. The shorts are being blown up.
A structural supply deficit now grips the silver market for the 5th consecutive year, driven partly by chronic price suppression that made mining unprofitable. With global annual silver production valued at only about $30 billion, it remains a tiny market vulnerable to distortions. As miners cut output, shortages deepen. Lending rates for silver have spiked, and available shorts in paper ETFs like SLV are tightening dramatically. Borrowing costs are forcing short sellers out, creating conditions for an explosive squeeze. Behind the scenes, extreme stress in leasing markets confirms that physical silver is becoming harder to source, even as investors grow more determined to obtain it.
No one can tell you that. And if they do, they're making up a number. I've said for years that on gold and silver, the numbers that we're going to go to are higher than anyone has projected of any number for gold or any number for silver. The actual number, I'm convinced, is going to be far higher than the most optimistic projection there is. And the reason being, gold and silver what they've done is they've sold paper contracts against gold and against silver that don't exist. And we're going to move into a failure to deliver scenario. And when that happens, man is a funny animal. When you tell man he can't have something, he wants it that much more.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're talking literally trillions of dollars that are going to be dislodged from the stock market, from the bond market, even from the crypto markets. And all that money is going to be pointed toward gold and silver. Those markets, I mean, especially silver being so small, they cannot handle the type of capital that's going to be heading toward a safe haven or the safe havens. And one other aspect of man, fear is the greatest emotion there is. And people are going to be moving money into gold and silver, not out of greed because, I can buy gold at 50 and I can sell it at 100 or 200 or whatever. That's not going to be the motivator. The motivator is going to be fear of losing everything in other markets and putting that money into something that is a safe haven and cannot bankrupt. That's the whole key. They can't bankrupt in a world that is defaulting.
For decades, financial institutions issued paper claims on gold and silver far exceeding actual physical supply, contracts representing metal that doesn't exist. As more traders request delivery, a breaking point approaches. A failure to deliver event would trigger a violent repricing, unleashing a rush of capital fleeing equities, bonds, and even portions of the crypto market. In a small market like silver, trillions seeking safety could overwhelm available supply. Fear, not greed, becomes the dominant driver. Fear of systemic defaults, of evaporating purchasing power, of paper assets failing to perform. In that moment, real metal becomes not just valuable, but urgently necessary.
Well, the biggest lines you don't see, and I don't see, nobody sees them. The biggest lines are the electronic lines.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once you get full-fledged movement from, family offices, hedge funds, they're smelling blood in the water. Once we get to that point, it's going to make what we've already seen look like not even just barely a starter. Well, silver's got many, many uses. It's not just industrial. I mean, you've got technological, you have medicinal. Go back hundreds of years. You remember the term, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Well, only the wealthy people could afford silverware. And the reason they used silverware was because the antibacterial
properties.
The antibacterial that properties of silver, right? Exactly. Gold is basically strictly money, and silver for several thousand years was also money, but it has other uses. It has more uses than any other element on the planet.
Silver isn't merely a monetary metal, it's a cornerstone of modern civilization. From medicine to aerospace, microchips to solar panels, it is the most versatile element used by industry today. Its antimicrobial properties made it prized centuries ago and remain essential for healthcare. Solar demand alone surged to record highs in 2024 and 2025, pushing consumption far beyond earlier forecasts. Unlike gold, which is primarily held as wealth, silver's dual role in technology and investment compounds pressure on already tight supplies. When industrial users and investors compete for the same dwindling stockpile, price stability gives way to volatility and ultimately scarcity.
Keep an eye on the Japanese interest rates and also the Japanese yen, because that is it's the bed, if you will, for the carry trade. The carry trade that had been put on, they were doing this back in the 90s, early 2000s. You could borrow in yen at low interest rates, and you could just turn around and buy U.S. Treasuries and make the spread, and that's fine as long as interest rates don't rise in Japan, and it's fine as long as the yen itself does not rise in value versus the dollar. It was a cheap way of funding, and it's being shut off. Not only is it being shut off, but it's turning some of these carry trades upside down because the rate to carry is higher and the cost to buy the Japanese yen back is higher. So the carry trades are blowing up. That's what that chart is showing you. Oh, yeah, well, that would certainly be a cause for alarm. But just this elevated level, if you're looking at the chart, it's straight up.
Yeah.
When is that going to stop, or does it stop? In my opinion, look at the debt to GDP level in Japan. They're at what, 300% or thereabouts.
Oof.
And you go back into the 1970s and early 80s. But I remember when I was in college in the early 80s, any country they got to 100% debt to GDP, they were opening the door to Banana Republic land. And now there's hardly any countries around the world that are under 100% debt to GDP. I mean, the U.S., the issuer of the world's reserve currency, is at 130%. Back in 1980, the United States would have been considered a banana republic. And actually, I mean, as an aside, if you look at the rule of law and the things that are happening in the United States, there's an argument we are a banana republic.
Japan's unraveling carry trade now threatens global liquidity. For years, investors borrowed cheap yen to buy higher-yield U.S. assets. But rising Japanese rates and a strengthening yen have flipped the trade upside down, forcing rapid unwinding. At the same time, Japan's debt-to-GDP ratio near 300% reflects a broader global pattern. Most developed nations now stand above 100%, levels once associated with emerging market crises. As sovereign balance sheets deteriorate, trust in fiat systems erodes. Paper markets, COMEX, LBMA, and other derivatives platforms struggle to meet physical delivery requests. When contracts exceed available metal, confidence collapses, accelerating the flight into hard assets.
That goes along with what we've talked about before, the great taking. They know it's coming.
I mean, isn't this 50-year mortgage?
One thing about that's a joke, the 50-year mortgage. I mean, that is absolutely hilarious. I posted, when the day that came out, I posted to my website, a couple articles on that, and that is so bad. That is so. Yes, it lowers the monthly payments, but it's putting people on the gerbil treadmill. It's just that is stupid, in my opinion. I did want to mention the other thing with gold and silver. You've got the two markets. You've got the paper market and you've got the physical market. And for years and years and years, the paper market acted like the tail on a dog that wagged the dog. In other words, paper markets made pricing. They priced the market. The problem now, because with COMEX and with LBMA, you have buyers that are lining up to take physical off the exchanges. The problem is they can't print gold and they can't print silver. The only thing they can do is print contracts that, when all is said and done, they cannot perform, which makes them worth zero. Silver's still got slight backwardation, but I mean, all the lease levels, all the borrow rates, everything's elevated. It just reeks of a massive short squeeze. Understand this. You're using the casino analogy. Understand this. The casino itself is bankrupting. So what you need to do is you need to cash your chips in now, get those chips out of the casino and out of chips. You got to convert your chips into something real. And that's basically, you need to convert your fiat currencies to gold and silver. Because the analogy of the casino being bankrupt, you've got sovereign treasuries all over the world that are upside down.
As confidence in financial chips fades, investors migrate toward tangible forms of wealth. Physical ownership, especially in recognizable divisible silver, is increasingly attractive. Junk silver, U.S. coins minted in 1964 or earlier, offers unmatched utility, small denominations for barter, impossible to counterfeit realistically, and instantly recognizable. Temporary dealer discounts due to refinery backlogs have made junk silver the cheapest physical option in the U.S. market. But these discounts won't last. Large quantities have already been melted down, permanently reducing supply. As shortages and backwardation intensify, converting fiat currency into physical gold and silver becomes not speculation, but preparation.
And this is
way to go, in your opinion.
This is for non-IRAs. In an IRA, you've got to do a product that's 99.9 pure. Mm-hmm. Junk silver, I've been an advocate of junk silver for the last 10 plus years now. It's the smallest denomination of silver. In other words, 14 dimes equals 1 ounce. I think it's $1.38 equals 1 ounce. So that gives you 14 transactions. In a system down scenario, if you're going to barter, now you've got the smallest unit of silver. It's recognizable because everybody knows what a dime or quarter looks like. And as long as it says 1964 or earlier, you know it's 90% silver. It can't be counterfeited because if somebody comes to you with a bright, shiny, brand new dime or quarter, it's probably fake because junk circulated for years and years and years. It was in people's pockets. It should be scratched. It should be dirty. And on top of that, it is U.S. mint lineage coin. Now, the reason I wanted to talk today about junk is because the pricing on junk versus other forms of silver have temporarily collapsed. I think dealers are bidding $4 and $5 under spot if you go to sell it, and you can buy it at spot, maybe 25, 50 cents over spot. It's the cheapest form of silver available right now. The reason being, back in the late 70s and the early 80s, I'm not going to say it was the only means, but the primary means of Americans that wanted to buy silver, the junk silver, that was really all there was available for investors. So you had, I don't know, well, you've had years since then too, but you had 5 or 10 years there where people were accumulating silver. They saw the $50 peak. You had some buyers, of course, at that level or in the 40s, and they hung on for 20, 30 years plus. What's happened is a lot of that legacy silver, when the price got to $50, people started selling. People and large hoards have been sold. What's happened is the dealers don't want to hold all of that as inventory. So if they're bidding 5%, 7%, 9% under spot, they take that junk in, they send it to a refiner, they refine the silver out of it, and then they sell that silver on the spot market, and that's how they make their profit. The problem long term, now this is a short-term problem because refiners are backed up. Some refiners are even refusing to take more junk in. They're backed up. But once this backlog gets done, the discount will abate. It'll come back to spot or above spot. And going forward, there's way less junk silver left in existence because it got melted down. So if you're buying silver today and it's not an IRA account, it's foolish to not buy junk silver. It's the best form for an American to own, and it's the cheapest.